Philip Haney saw things that were a threat to this country, he said something and he was severely punished for it because apparently the Obama administration had some radical Islamic ties that they did not want anybody, including Philip Haney, to expose. And so rather than prosecuting these unindicted co-conspirators, CARE, NIT, ISNA, the Obama administration chose to bring these organizations into positions of power, into positions of authority. They were consulting with them on issues of national security, issues of counterterrorism, and Philip Haney was there to document it all.
With the COVID-19 virus crisis and the number of casualties with the flu, if you have not been looking at C60 as a means to significantly improve your immunities by now, you should be. Here's why. First, a strong and healthy immune system is your body's first defense, and for those with a strong immune system, your body will adequately fight viruses without medical intervention. Second, C60 is safe as long as you are taking high-quality C60 with no added fillers or solvents. Third, C60 is the best means of removing free radicals from your body that exists. It's at least 200 times better at this function than vitamin C and any other antioxidant. Fourth, as Dr. Chu Lee stated on a previous show, COVID-19 creates massive amounts of free radicals, which is causing organ failure for those with weaker immune systems. So now it becomes clear you need the best free radical fighter that exists, and that is C60 with black seed oil and curcumin. Why black seed oil and curcumin? Because these two ingredients are the absolute best at supporting C60 to fight viruses and to improve your immune system. Go to sarahwestall.com/shop and learn more about why this formula is so powerful for building your immunities. And it's now available in gel capsules and by diffuser for more serious needs. Be sure to read the research and, of course, use the current coupons to save money when you buy. Patrons also receive a 10% discount. You can find that code at patreon.com/sarahwestall. Remember, keeping you and your family safe is the most important thing you can do. Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. Today I have a great program. The Edge joins to discuss an American hero who paid the ultimate price exposing the highest levels of treason and corruption in our country. Philip Haney was a whistleblower who worked as a counterterrorism specialist for the newly created National Security Agency after 9/11. His story is all but too familiar with whistleblowers exposing the highest levels in our government, and he ended up paying the ultimate price. The Edge and I explore how this information not only exposes the highest levels of corruption with names like Obama, Clinton, McCain, and many others, but how their actions purposely led to destabilizing the United States by teaming with Mexican cartels, Middle East terrorist organizations, and drug and human traffickers. This is an important interview, and it must be told. But before we get into this, I just posted Sherry Edwards' frequency update for COVID-19. You can find links to that on my front page at sarahwestall.com. For those who are energy and biofrequency workers, make sure you get that copy. It has some updates to the frequencies. I also include practical resources and will be updating that as new information becomes available. I know many of you, just like me, are chewing at the bit to get James Marshall's, his sound file that he's been putting together for the COVID-19. As many of you are aware as well, this is much trickier than normal viruses. So it should be available soon. And as soon as it is, I will make a big announcement, and it too will be available. A link to it will be on my front page and on that resource page that's on my front page. And then lastly, I want to tell you that The Edge sticks around to do an exclusive interview on another Jeffrey Epstein type situation in Canada that is absolutely explosive. She's working on this developing story, and it will be out to the public in about a week, but she's going to give us a glimpse of what she has. And that's for my patrons. And you can join by going to patreon.com/sarahwestall. And those of you that join, you can also get 10% off the C60 gel caps, 10% off the fat-burning Tetragen, as well as 15% off the telomere lengthening Define Time capsules. And you can join at patreon.com/Sarah Westall. Okay, now let's get into this important interview now with The Edge. Thank you so much for joining me today, Edge.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, you have done amazing reporting. I mean, there isn't much reporting like this out there. And when I saw it, I just thought it was absolutely great because you're connecting a lot of dots and bringing things forward for people. And of course, people are never going to get this in the mainstream media. And it's just so important that people realize these things have been going on in our country. And so I appreciate just the fact that you're doing this work. But, you know, the gist of it, or the bulk of it, is about this great hero, American hero. His name was Philip Haney, who worked for, in counterterrorism. And he was abused by our own government, essentially, and ended up dead. But we probably want to rewind it a bit and just kind of start off with who this Philip Haney was and what he got involved in. Can you kind of explain who he was and what he did?
Sure. Philip Haney is a whistleblower, but before he was a whistleblower, he worked for the Department of Homeland Security, and he was one of their charter members. He came on board when they first opened their doors in March of 2003, and he was there to pretty much see it all. And what he was tasked to do was to find the nests, follow the trail and find the nests. And that's exactly what Philip Haney did. He would devise lists, he would build out the networks, and that's how they would target individuals and organizations. And he was very good at what he did. In fact, Louis Gohmert remarked about this, commemorating him after his death, saying that he had received numerous awards and commendations for his work, and that his work, which had meticulously compiled information and produced actionable reports, led to the identification of hundreds of terrorists. But what happened was we saw this dramatic shift when the Obama administration took control. And basically, they just completely shifted the policy at the DHS to where they were no longer associating certain terrorist individual groups or organizations with religious groups, making it much more difficult to connect the dots. And what Louis Gohmert, the way he had explained it, was that Philip Haney saw things that were a threat to this country. He said something and he was severely punished for it, because apparently the Obama administration had some radical Islamic ties that they did not want anybody, including Philip Haney, to expose. So that was during his time at the DHS, and he was targeted. He was put under numerous investigations to intimidate him, silence him, and remove him. But he actually remained on for the remainder of his tenure until he retired, and he was there to see it all.
Well, and let's talk about some of the stuff he saw and what their actions were to silence this information. I mean, they went as far as scrubbed this information. But let's talk about, well, first, let's define what a terrorist is, because a lot of people believe that the whole notion of terrorists is made up. And so I think we need to define what that is, the fact that there are extremist groups who, and in extremist religious groups who they're purposely only learning from the Quran. They're not educated in any other way. And I actually believe that these groups are used for purposes. They're purposely brainwashed in a lot of cases, or there are just cultish type people. But can you talk about what these terrorist groups are? And it's even kind of more frightening when you realize that they were teaming up with the Mexican cartels and there was a bigger deal here.
Sure. I do break down several different terrorist organizations in this report. The one I specifically speak about with regards to the connection with the Mexican cartels was Hezbollah. We do know that Hezbollah infiltrated and grew in power and in numbers in South America as well as Mexico, and they were working with the cartels. That is one terrorist organization. They were originally just a Middle Eastern organization, but they became in the early 2000s, what we realized is that they started becoming an international criminal syndicate, and they were working with cartels in Mexico, and they doing everything from money laundering, drug trafficking, gun running, and a whole host of other criminal activities. So it wasn't just directly terrorism, it was a lot of money raising for the terrorist operations as well.
Well, and terrorist operations, whether whoever is sponsoring it usually uses these types of criminal organizations to do it. Correct?
Right.
I mean, isn't that the pattern that you're finding?
Right.
Yes.
And then we also talk in the report about the Muslim Brotherhood. That was definitely on Philip Haney's radar. In fact, that was one of the networks that he worked on that was scrubbed, that he finally blew the whistle on after he left the DHS. But yes, and the Muslim Brotherhood, he talked in depth about how they had infiltrated the government, how the Obama administration had welcomed them into positions of power and authority, where they were helping to create policy regarding counterterrorism, regarding national security. So these things are very much intertwined with what he was blowing the whistle on. So we talk about Muslim Brotherhood in this paper, as well as Hamas. So there's a few, and then Tablighi Jamaat, which was another organization another network that Philip Haney worked on towards the latter years of his tenure at the DHS, which was deleted from the system. And that organization was deleted under Hillary Clinton's State Department's direction. And he said that they bypassed the protocols and obtained his social security number and went into his database, and just completely deleted it. And this Tablighi Jamaat case that he had worked on was a religious group that was affiliated with two shootings that happened just a few years after that database was deleted, which was the San Bernardino attack, as well as the Florida nightclub shooting.
Yeah, it's just incredible, the stuff that's in this, and the fact that they were deleting all the trails and the people. But you also connected, you called it the Arizona Mafia, which connected to John McCain and Janet Napolitano, who was Homeland Security Director. Can you talk about that as well?
Sure. So it's important to understand when Obama came into office, and then it was just about a year later that Napolitano was appointed as the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. I don't think it was a coincidence that she was chosen for that position. And you need to understand her background in Arizona prior to being appointed to that position, and how that is relevant. Because during her tenure in Arizona, she was U.S. attorney, a district attorney in Arizona. Then she became the attorney general in Arizona. And then she became the governor in Arizona. So it was a span of at least about 10 years or more that she was in high positions in Arizona. All while this Hezbollah infiltration in South America and in Mexico was going on, and the criminal cartels were working with Hezbollah, all while also this Arizona Mafia allegedly was becoming very comfortable with the PRI political party in Mexico. And this is according to a whistleblower by the name of Jeffrey Peterson. He's been speaking out about this for a couple of years now. He's done some interviews. I've even spoken with him briefly, and I've read his complaint. He has a December 2018 complaint that he has filed against several alleged members of the Arizona Mafia, where he goes into depth about this. He claims to have been very much in the inner circle of this group with Napolitano, and basically he observed it firsthand, this very comfy relationship between the Arizona Mafia and the PRI political party in Mexico. And that he said that it started off very sort of innocuous, just developing Arizona relationships with Mexico, but that these people that Napolitano was surrounded with and herself got very seduced by the easy money that was flowing up from Mexico, which presumably came from, or at least a significant portion of it, presumably came from the cartels, which were trying to use those political connections to be able to get away with doing the work they were trying to do, which was obviously trafficking. So,
well, and let me read. Can I read a little bit that you wrote? This is one paragraph, which I think is pretty powerful. You said that Hezbollah created an infrastructure for training, intelligence operations, and sleeper cells in Mexico while aiding the cartels in the construction of tunnels used for drug smuggling and human trafficking across the U.S. border. An abundance of evidence has been made clear to Western intelligence communities that Mexican cartels have, for years, been in league with Islamic terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah. So basically, we have this major issue across our border with, the Mexican cartels, drug smuggling, human trafficking, but that are also sleeper cells trained by Hezbollah.
Absolutely. In fact, in 2008, the DEA launched Project Cassandra, where they were targeting Hezbollah, and they were watching the money flow and the drug trafficking flow up through the border from Mexico. And as they started zeroing in on their targets, they were following about $1 billion a year that Hezbollah was making through this criminal enterprise. And they were zeroing in on their targets, and they were consistently facing roadblocks by the Obama administration, not able to get any prosecutions or arrests from that project during the Obama administration in that time frame. So yes, there was a lot of obstruction, obfuscation, redirection going on in those years during the Obama administration. Meanwhile, we had John Brennan, who was the assistant to the president for Homeland Security, stating that Hezbollah, they were looking at building up more moderate ways and moderate elements in Hezbollah. So it was a completely different narrative that was coming out of the Obama administration from what was being observed from investigators in the DEA, for example.
Yeah, they were watching all this human trafficking and drug trafficking going on through our borders. It makes you wonder why they want to keep our borders open when there's so much money flowing through it. They use the human compassion story, but you wonder, if you follow the money, it's not about human compassion. It's about keeping this drug and human trafficking operation and the money in their pockets. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it's really about. Philip Haney, another thing you said in your article, which I thought was incredible, is he documented everything, including at least 150 meetings at the White House with Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas front organizations such as ISNA and CAIR, while all this trafficking, and they were making $1 billion a year on smuggling human beings.
Right. Yes. So Philip Haney was known to be meticulous in taking his notes, and he did document at least 150 meetings with the Obama White House and members of Muslim Brotherhood front organizations like CAIR and ISNA. And it's important to know that in November of 2008, CAIR, ISNA, and NAIT were found in a federal court to be unindicted co-conspirators in a case that charged 5 individuals with raising money for Hamas between $12 to $60 million. And this was this trial took place at the same month of Obama's election in 2008. And so rather than prosecuting these unindicted co-conspirators, CARE, NAIT, ISNA, the Obama administration chose to bring these organizations into positions of power, into positions of authority. They were consulting with them on issues of national security, issues of counterterrorism, and Philip Haney was there to document it all.
Well, and then he was ordered to delete or modify. So you need to tell me what the modify versus delete is. Over 800 records of individuals connected to Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood from the law enforcement database. Why in the world was he told to do this? And what does it mean to modify?
Well, what they didn't want was anything affiliated with Muslim Brotherhood in the database. And the reason why was they needed to cover their tracks because it didn't look very good if they were bringing groups that were associated with Muslim Brotherhood into the White House for meetings, if they also at the same time had these organizations or Muslim Brotherhood listed on certain lists at the DHS. So he was ordered to modify these lists that had any connection, modify any connections or delete any connections that had to do with Muslim Brotherhood. That was in the first Great Purge, is what he refers to it, in November of 2009.
Yeah, wow. And then there was another Great Purge, or they just kept purging?
Yes. So then it was in March of 2012 was the second purge. And this was the organization he refers to as Tablighi Jamaat. And this case, he said, was shut down by Hillary Clinton, the State Department, and the Department of Homeland Security, Civil Rights and Liberties. They came to the National Targeting Center in March of 2012 and said that they had concerns about the focus being on Tablighi Jamaat. So they shut the case down, but this time they didn't ask Philip Haney to modify records. They just obtained his Social Security and went in the system and deleted it.
They didn't even go use any protocols, which isn't surprising because there's a lot of things under Hillary Clinton that use that same procedure, just did what they wanted and didn't follow protocols. But one thing that I thought was even more interesting is, McCain had that, the Arizona Mafia, but it looks as if Senator McCain was the one who opened up the Congress to the Brotherhood and was the one arranging the meetings, and there's a lot of evidence now to show that McCain was a much bigger player in all of this. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So it was about around 2012 that Michelle Bachmann and a group of congressmen, Louis Gohmert was included in that group. They issued letters. They started to really have Muslim Brotherhood on their radar. And they had major concerns, particularly with Huma Abedin having the ability to review classified information and access to national security secrets. They were concerned about this, and so they sent letters out to the Department of National Intelligence, the DHS, the DOD, DOJ, State Department, issuing these warnings, hey, look, you really need to look into this. And Bachmann and these other congressmen received harsh criticism from John McCain and others. But later we realized that John McCain really did have a lot of connections that are questionable. For example, meeting with this known Al-Qaeda associate and Libyan militia leader in 2011 during a trip to Benghazi. We had an Egyptian media representative saying that, John McCain was the godfather of Muslim Brotherhood and that they were holding ceremonies commemorating him after his death. Stating that John McCain actually provided access for the Muslim Brotherhood into our own Congress and into our into our own government. So yes, I think behind the scenes, McCain had a much larger role in this than we had originally realized at that time.
Well, what do you think is the big picture here? Because one thing that you wrote about is that this is about destabilizing America. Can you bring that into focus for us and how you believe, because it does seem like that. I mean, that's what ends up happening. But is it a targeted thing they were trying to do while making money and being on a gravy train? Are they trying to destabilize our country?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you look at a criminal syndicate, and that's kind of how I look at the way certain um, administrations and departments or sections, the deep state within our government. I feel like you have to look at them kind of like a criminal syndicate, where, yes, it is actually about making money. And so, gun running, drug trafficking, human trafficking, I think that's all part of it. But in the process, yes, I think the ultimate goal is destabilization.
Because
And if you are a terrorist organization and you're trying to bring down the strongest nation in the world, you're not going to be able to do that with direct war. It has to be from within, destabilization from within.
yes, and that's what they're trying to do because they can't fight us with war, with military, so they're going to do it this way. And where do you think things are at now? Because all this is exploding, all these things are being exposed, but it seems like there's one big pushback, and our media might be on the side of the deep state. I mean, that's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, I think that we're not out of the woods yet, but I definitely think they're on the run. And we're definitely taking down cartels and terrorist organizations one by one. But as quickly as we're taking them down, new groups arise. So it's really just a constant fight. But at least we're now actually addressing it. Whereas before we were just letting it proliferate and just flourish and take over
and destroy our country and suicide rates start skyrocketing, drugs infest all our neighborhoods. I mean, it's just it trickles to everything.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I know that we've really been going after the cartels as well as the terrorist organizations. So the more that we are, just using every single tool at our disposal, ICE, the Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, these organizations, these departments were designed to root out this criminal activity. And I think they're actually being used to the best of our ability at this point right now. So I do feel like I see some major progress. In fact, we just the DOJ just announced Project Python last week, which they are going after another cartel, Mexican cartels, CJ&G. Huge cartel that does a lot of drug trafficking. So the more we can go after these, the more that we are cutting off the funding to other terrorist activity, to other deep state activity, etc.
Well, and I think people need to realize that the drug trafficking and the human trafficking is one-on-one now. It's the same channels. And, drug trafficking might not seem that bad to some people, but when you realize that is the human trafficking channels as well, it becomes crystal clear that these things need to be broken up.
Absolutely. Definitely. So if you can get after one, you're automatically affecting the other. So definitely they work hand in hand.
Well, you just do such fabulous work. Where can people learn more about this? They got to read this article. They got to listen to your podcast. They got to learn all about your investigative work. So where can they find your stuff?
Thank you so much. Yes, I do a lot of writing for Corey Lynn of Corey's Digs. You can find some of my writing, including this article, on her website, which is corysdigs.com. And you can just do a search for Philip Haney, and that article will pull up. I also have my own website, which is hivemind.com. That is spelled with ones instead of I's. So that's HVEM1ND.com. We have a podcast which airs. We have it on several different uh, locations, but we also have it on a YouTube channel, on Corey's YouTube channel at Corey's Digs on YouTube. And we have a Hive Mind YouTube channel as well. Same thing, spelled with ones instead of I's.
So are you doing all your podcasts with Corey as well?
Yes.
She's just great. I love her.
I love her.
I post a lot of her articles. Yeah, I support her and things. And then I saw your article and I said, oh my God, this is great. So I can see how you're working together because you're both just a phenomenal journalists. So
oh, thank you. I see Corey as like the gold standard. It's gold standard. I hope to attain that level of meticulousness in the way that she researches and her accuracy and reporting. So thank you very much. And yes, I love working with her.
Well, I think this article reached that level. I think the only thing that's really hard to reach with Corey is to keep up with her. And I mean, she just becomes, I don't know how she pumps out so much of this stuff. She just works so hard, very passionate, and works.
She does.
Yes. It's just incredible. I mean, we all work hard, but my gosh, she's great. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to have you back.
Absolutely. I would love to have you back, to be back. And I just love your work. And it's just really a pleasure and an honor to come on your show. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you too. Stay safe.
Okay, you too.